to the Evening Review. My name is Sohana Klache. Let's take a look at today's newspaper. Joining us in studio is Benedict Louw, who's the special envoy on the land indigenization bill that the Affirmative Repositioning movement has put to Parliament. Welcome to the Evening Review, sir.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Just guide us through, what is the land indigenization bill? What are you seeking to achieve with this bill?
Well, as a point of departure, let me first thank you for this platform to engage you on this very important bill, which is called the Land Indigenization Bill. Unlike others, you have chosen not to treat us as if we are suffering from political leprosy. The Land Indigenization Bill, as it is known by now, is something which at least last year, 2019, in particular March, subsequent to a March for Land demonstration here in Windhoek, here in the capital, was submitted at the National Assembly. Also, it was resubmitted again this year in June 2020, which basically seeks to restore the dignity of the indigenous people of Namibia. As it relates to land, the master means of production. So, in a nutshell, that is what the bill is. It is, as always, the preoccupation of land is something which the Affirmative Repositioning movement, the only genuine leftist movement in Namibia, on behalf of citizens, on behalf of land activists, submitted through this means, and we are hopeful that we are going to see it through until its fruition.
Okay, so this bill, if I get what you're saying, is essentially we're looking at regulating the ownership of land by foreigners. In submitting this to the National Assembly, where are you? You mentioned that you had to resubmit it twice. Well, why has it had to go back twice to the National Assembly?
Well, for one, the Affirmative Repositioning movement is a movement that is involved in different theatre of struggles. You will know that we are involved in court applications, especially when our people are being evicted by a very ruthless regime, also greedy by their own nature. We are also involved in ordinary diplomatic talks in which we engage relevant parties from day to day, from time to time. Also, we are engaged also in protest action. So the first time when this was made known was at the particular protest action I've mentioned, which took place last year in March 2019. So we had to come back and put it into a cogent and legislative framework when we had to resubmit it in June. So that is basically what transpired. We've submitted it successfully. And right now, we have received the good news that it has been tabled in Parliament, and the Speaker of Parliament, Peter Kachevivi, he has referred it now to the committee which is dealing with constitutional matters. Okay.
If we look at regulating land ownership by foreigners, on our doorstep, Zimbabwe, we can see what happened when land was taken from white farmers and effectively given away. In this bill that you're proposing, and looking at the Zimbabwean situation, which obviously went very wrong, don't you think that this could also lead us down a similar path?
You see, this is a narrative which is not only being created here domestically to try and intimidate those ones who are at the forefront of restoring the dignity of the indigenous child. It is a narrative which is being created all over continental Africa and even in diaspora, in that it is purely a scarecrow tactic, which aim is to continuously, perpetually allow for the land dispossession which took place, which is a historical fact, to maintain or to sustain that status quo, but by leaving it as it is. Now, what we are seeing in the AR is, and what people need to understand, that's why we are on a constant basis, always busy, conscientizing and reorienting our activists and those who are sympathizing with AR. And that is that in the context of Zimbabwe, what took place there was, upon Zimbabwean independence, there was what they call the Lancaster Agreement.
House Agreement.
Exactly. Which set out the parameters and which set out certain conditions that both parties had to play vis-a-vis the land. What happened was that the UK, Britain for that matter, they reneged on that Lancaster Agreement. So much so that as we are doing it now, as the elders who are doing it now, this was also similar, the position that Zimbabwe was in. So 10 years passed by, 20 years passed by, people started to get agitated now because this land is not forthcoming. It is then at that point that leaders of the struggle of the Veterans Association took it upon themselves to say that enough is enough. We have to get this land. And this is where, it was done in a haphazard fashion. There was nothing in principle wrong what Zimbabwe did in reclaiming land which rightfully belongs to them. Yes, there is a problem with the method in which they applied. So coming back to Namibia, what we are saying is we should not confuse our objectives with our methods. As long as the objectives remain the same, we should not be confused about the method. As long as we have to attend to something which is historical effect of the land dispossession, as long as we are doing that, it should be fine. There's also another argument. That argument is of productive nature. What we are saying is, as we are speaking, the GDP output for agriculture annually is not more than 4%. It's always less than 4%. How is that so? It's because the land which is locked in the hands of the few, it is not used for the productive purposes for which it ought to be done. It is rather used for speculative purposes on residential and whatever. That's why you have an inflated state of property market in Namibia.
Now, just want to understand what is wrong, because if one looks at the aspect of foreigners, there's an issue of foreign direct investment. You've got foreign investors that would come in here and are prepared to take up risks to invest in Namibia and to buy land. Case in point is Erindi, which the current owners have been struggling to sell for almost 5 years. In essence, what would you then say is wrong with foreign land ownership, especially in instances where locals cannot afford to attain such land?
First of all, let me divide that question into two. This narrative that will scare away foreign investment, like I've stated before, it's a scarecrow tactic. Foreign investors, they are investing in war-torn countries where there's no law and order, yet they are prospering. Namibia, a relatively peaceful country up to now, is more than able, if following the right processes, will at the end of the day achieve it in a much better way than what they are talking about in terms of other countries. Now, In terms of foreign investment, what we are saying is that, at least in relation to the land indigenization bill, is this, that no foreigner, especially when it comes to agricultural land and communal land, ought to be in the custodianship or ownership of foreigners or those persons who are not Namibians. No, because what we are saying is that when it comes to communal land is customary. It is dictated by customary rights, and those rights are enshrined in the Constitution. So the same applies for agricultural land. What we are saying is that if you are coming to invest on a commercial basis, it ought to be on a 51-49% basis. That lease should not exceed more than 20 years. And you ought to come here with the expectation that it's going to be a lease. It's not going to be something of 99 years. It's not going to be something which is forever. No. You are going to be given a lease for 20 years, and within those 20 years, you ought to come and give a plan of action or some type of business plan that you intend to do with this land during this particular period. Failure of which, it's just going to be expropriated by the state anew. So that is what we are saying in regarding foreign investors. First of all, there should be no worry about any foreigner that no, they can't, because any serious investor who come to Namibia with a genuine intent, with a genuine heart, to come and invest and better the conditions of the local population, would come and be fine with the 51-49% in terms of any business which they are setting up. They ought to be fine with it. Any investor that comes here ought to also be satisfied with at least the number of years he or she is going to lease that particular land.
I'm looking at the time frame that you're proposing, and you're talking about a 20-year time frame. An investor can go back and say, look, I would need a lot of money to invest in Namibia. I probably need a lot of land, and I'd need sufficient time to recoup what I've put into the country. How realistic is this 20-year frame and this 49% share that you're giving to the investor who's putting in his own money and is coming with his own and who has a lot at stake?
You see, who has a lot at stake at the end of the day is not necessarily the investor, because you must remember that when you come here, there's a lot of things that take place. First of all, there's labor exploitation which takes place. Second of all, the environment is also affected. So this narrative that we have to be concerned of what investors are going to take away is already a very defeatist narrative. Because basically what we are saying is this, that in the absence of any investor, we are incapable of turning our own land into being productive. Now, that investor that comes here, if you want to grow grapes in wherever in Namibia, yes, you have a good 10 years that you can be able, from the point of working that land up to the point where it's sustainably productive. It's 10 years. You can go on, 15, 20, whatever the case might be. But it's not all of the investors that are going to come here, it's going to invest as being grape producers. No, you have a whole sector, agricultural arena out there in which investors can invest. Now, on the issue of how are we going to make sure that they are not losing out at the end of the day in terms of the investment, it's only when you have a serious and honest investor who comes here. that comes not only to maximize on profit, but also to embetter the conditions of the local population, because it has to be a mutually beneficial partnership. So that investor, the day when that investor decides no more to be here, it is because the relationship has not been harmonious because of the one or the other reasons, in terms of work relations, in terms of paying the adequate and needed taxes to state. I mean, if you have a investor that subscribe and abides by all of these things, no, we'll have a happy investor.
AR as a movement is very vocal on the issue of land ownership, but I want to know, what about other issues that you see occurring? What is your stance there now on recent incidences of rape that have been happening? What is your stance on government's response to the COVID-19 pandemic? Can you just also is your ideology only limited to the land issue?
No, the AR is the only leftist movement that has been providing leadership and qualitative logical guidance since its birth in 2014, has been able to spread itself amongst all these spheres of societal ills. We, for example, in the AR, when it comes to the issues of rape, when it comes to the issues of come again what you've mentioned, the
COVID-19 response by government.
COVID-19, we have been not involved in a practical manner per se, because you must remember that AR at this point of time is not a movement in power. We are only, most of the time, we operate in the sphere of advocacy and on the streets. That's where we are. So, in terms of rape, we've written countless. Not only, I'm not talking only in terms of articles. I'm not only talking in terms of presentation. Doesn't matter where, but we were clear deliberations, whether in lecture halls, whether in some presentations, about the scourge of rape, which is inflicting so much harm onto our society. And those are some of the ills, because we in the AR, we believe that there can be never an advancement of, in particular, the indigenous child without, in the absence of the woman. It can never be like that. Coming to the issue of COVID-19, yes, we are all of us have been, caught by this pandemic off guard, and we are not either in a position to command resources as to say that, listen, we feel that, for example, in Havana compared to Kleiner Cooper, Havana needs more of a particular aid and support than the people in Kleiner Cooper. We are not in power, but all that we are doing so far is we are advocating it through our various platforms. And we are also very well aware that, the chaos which is being let out now by the incumbent regime, in that is to loot the money or the resources which has been intended for those, especially your poor and your marginalized. We are aware that a lot of this loot is, as we are speaking, they are taking place. But like I've said before, our theaters of struggle has always been, through these methods of courts, of demonstrations in the street, engaging political parties, but key at the center of our championing of the struggles of the poor and the oppressed. At the center of that is the land question, because it is our belief that if we at some degree decisively deal with the issue of land, because in land you can go and read, there's many hypotheses which indicates that there's violence rooted in poverty. This is the most foremost thinkers will tell you also that. So what is poverty? Poverty is locked into the disproportionate ownership of land which we have today. And what we are saying is that if we can deal with the land issue, it can have so many spiraling effects on all the societal ills or spheres that we have. So we need to get to the bottom of it, and we need to deal decisively with the issue of land.
We've seen sporadic registrations occurring of AR movements, Walvis Bay, Swakopmund, Windhoek. Walvis Bay and Swakopmund recently got their registration certificates, and Windhoek last week. Your AR's the decision to rather opt to register as a movement and not as a political party, was there any fear that you would not garner enough support in the run-up to the local and regional authority elections?
No, my brother, there's one thing, and there seems to be a clear confusion of what AR stands for, and that is that, you know, it first of all, it seeks as its premise to restore the dignity of the black child, in particular, but also to be a mass-based movement. What does mass-based move? It's something that is grounded, is something that's consolidated on the ground. So we've never been about local authorities, presidential, parliamentary elections. If time dictates, and as we are growing now, like we are growing now on the ground, sooner or later, what has been what has been shaping AR all this time would find form then. What do I mean by this? Is that we are not position mongers. We are not fueled by positions or by titles, or you need to be a minister of this or councillor of this to effect change. No, what we've been doing all this time is that even without any political power, we've managed to influence decisions on a political and even on an economical scale right here in our country, without being exerting any political power. So it's not a matter of whether we have anticipated that no, we will not have the necessary numbers to contest these critical spaces of politics in our country. No. On the contrary, for us, that's why we are saying in the AR, whether it's 25 November 2020, whether it was last year, November 2019, you will always see us exist. We are not fly-by-nights. We are an organic organization rooted into the ground forces.
You say you make the claim that you are not power mongers, or that you are not out there for positions. But I mean, if you look at the profile of your leader in the past year, the past few months, it's quite evident that he set himself up to. He's already making the claims, incoming mayor of Windhoek and so on. Does this then not? I mean, going back to what you're saying.
No. You see, there's a complete difference in contesting for a mayoral seat like we are doing now, and of regional councillor positions elsewhere, whether it's in Walvis Bay, whether it's in Karasburg East, whether it's in Gobabis. What we are saying with not being power mongers is that we are guided let's take, for example, if you know the history of Madagascar, where Madagascar is today and the president of Madagascar today. Here you had a president of Madagascar that used to be a radio jockey.
Rangelina.
Exactly. A radio DJ.
That took over in a coup.
That let's not haste. That first of all took power in the city, and subsequent of which he then in the first elections he was voted in as president. It's only subsequent of that first election that problems started to arise. But why I'm bringing in that comparison is this: that what Rangelina did was Rangelina had the ground fertile, and that is what you call mass-based, not what this once glorious movement, Southwest Africa, what they proclaim to be, in that they are mass-based. There are no more mass-based. They are here in their pockets and they are rural-based, but it's where it ends, and that is also starting to dwindle. So the activist in chief, Job Amupanda's candidacy for Windhoek mayor is premised on the basis that it is a ground swelling. It is the masses out there that dictates, and that is also what informs our orientation. You should never be a politician or career politician or whatever that wants to be wheelbarrowed always. No, you must be guided by those on the ground. Failure of which you are irrelevant, because we are not dictated by, or we are not guided by titles. For us, it's about true activism, and that is where AR is coming in.
Now, coming back now to this claims of mass-based organization, where are the registrations of movements in Khobabas, in Usakos, in Ondangwa, where an independent candidate did relatively well in the by-elections earlier this year, last year I mean. Why are we not seeing more of these registrations happening across the country?
We are busy, for example, a very key constituency in the Klaras region, which is Karasburg East. We are busy there. It's one of those constituencies that we are aware that not only some ages who have been there since ever, but it also allows for the opportune time for these activists to come out and say that, listen, this is the sense of the community, this is what we are feeling, and we are certainly sure that we are going to do good there. So that is one. It's not only Walvis Bay. We also have a number of other key constituencies in especially your Hardap region. For example, in Gibeon. So there are some upcoming movements, or at least association, rooted in our grassroots. We are still busy with soliciting and canvassing the ground, especially when it comes to our most northern parts of this country. So there are a number of deliberate efforts that as leadership that has been taken. We have, for example, the legal committee also here in Windhoek, which handles and facilitates the smooth process of application to ECN. So these things are still coming in. You have just seen yesterday, or was it the day before, that we had Swakopmund that has also been successfully registered. So things are coming out slowly but surely, but rest assured that we will inform you.
Okay, and then briefly, just very briefly, the relationship with Dr. Itula and IPC, where do things stand between IPC and AR?
No, there's nothing that stood before, and there's nothing that will continue to stand. Obviously, the IPC is a fully fledged political party which seeks to on a political basis, a hardcore basis, seeks to persuade and to get into power. Us, we remain a die-hard activist movement that seeks, first of all, cognizant of the aspirations of the poor and the downtrodden, in particular the landless, seeks first of all to garner that sense of confidence amongst the masses of our people. So there should be no confusion between the AR and the
IPC.
Yes, its name, yeah, so something like that.
Thank you very much, activist. Please do stay tuned for the weather.
Thanks for having us.
Please do stay tuned for the weather. Good night.